what was I thinking? How can I get successful results in the future? How do I need to behave? How do I need to think? What do I need to do differently?
Welcome to Biz Stories Shared, where storytellers share their inspiration, motivation, some disappointments, and how they applied the lessons that led them to success. Stories are gifts. Listen as these gifts are shared. Now, here is your host, Charlotte Plott.
Hello, storytellers. This is Charlotte Plott, and I am thrilled to bring you our guest today, Deborah Dubree. Deborah, are you ready to be a storyteller?
I am ecstatic to be a storyteller.
Well, this is going to be so much fun, and I want to read your bio now, Deborah. With only a high school diploma, Deborah went from answering phones as a receptionist to become the owner and CEO of a $20 million commercial construction company. 10 years ago, she sold that company and developed her new elite performance company, Clear Edge LLC. Known for her no BS approach, Deborah's speaking, training, and coaching methods have attracted national and international audiences and clients. These include business professionals, sales experts, entrepreneurs, pro golfers, along with NFL players from Baltimore Ravens, Green Bay Packers, Dallas Cowboys, Houston Texans, and the San Francisco 49ers, and more. Deborah's clients have dubbed her their secret weapon. Please join me in welcoming author of Average is an Addiction, From Mediocre to Millions. Deborah, I've given our listeners just a little summary about you, so will you take us a minute and tell us more about you personally, because we want to get to know you better, and then give us an overview of your business?
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to. Really, I'm just a small town girl from a little town outside of Chicago. It's called Lockport, Illinois. It's about 8,800 people. And as I was growing up, there's one time when within a year and a half, I graduated high school, graduated cosmetology school, took my state boards in Chicago so I could become a beautician, started my first W-2 job as a beautician in Lockport, married my longtime boyfriend, gave birth to my first child, my daughter. I have a son and a daughter. And I achieved all of that a month before I turned 19.
Oh,
So I was a busy camper, thought I knew it all right until the point that I went into labor. And then I realized there was a few things that I was missing. In 1979, my then husband and my two children, I had a boy since then, he was 2, my daughter was 8. We moved out to Phoenix, Arizona in 1979. After we got settled here, my entire goal was to get out of the apartment, not talk baby talk, and to make enough money to put my youngest into a really good preschool. And I ended up with a job as a receptionist at a property management development company. And later we'll kind of touch on what that meant as far as, in my world of construction, because they had a sister company that was a construction company, which is how I ended up in construction, but we'll go into that a little bit later. Later in my life, as I was climbing up the ladder of success, I became a single mom with 2 kids. And after being in the construction industry for 25 years, I eventually sold the company about 10 years ago, back in 2005, and created Clear Edge. And then authored 2 books. Average is an Addiction, From Mediocre to Millions is my most current book. The other one is called Howl, Howl, How to Lead, Level, and Leverage Any Path. Yeah, I've been a busy girl from a aspect of enjoying adventure and risk-taking. I've traveled to Australia a couple times, all around Australia, going over to Tasmania, went to New Zealand, really enjoyed New Zealand. I've been to Africa, to multiple countries in Africa, used to hill jump motorcycles. I drove with the great white sharks off the Isle de Guadalupe, which was cage diving with great whites.
wow.
To about 14 feet. And driven 600 horsepower NASCAR style race car up to, I think my average is about 124 miles an hour. So I obviously like adventure. I like a little bit of risk taking, intelligent risk taking. and pretty much living life full out.
Oh, you do live life full out. I can't imagine going in a down diving by the sharks, even being in a tank. I mean, in a cage.
In a cage, yeah, it was interesting. I won't say that I didn't have fear. I mean, some of my friends would ask me when I told them what I was going to do the great white shark dive, and there's like, and they'd start doing, of course, the music from Jaws and ask me, what in the world would possess you to go dive with the great white sharks? And I was like, because I've never done it before.
Oh, wow.
It's doing things that you've not done, even in the face of fear.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, but good for you for taking those challenges and doing all those world traveling places, and that has to have enlarged your knowledge and when you see the world like that, you see so many different things that you don't when you're just staying at home.
Oh, absolutely. I know there's one of the chapters in the book I even write about when I was in one of the countries in Africa, and didn't write this part in the book, but just the stories in the book about my travels to Africa. But one of the things is seeing the symbiotic relationship between some of the various animals, how even though they're enemies, they will work together in order to get a common goal, such as the migrations,
Oh,
which was really interesting because you have animals, whether it's zebras or wildebeest, some of the various animals that have to travel to other areas in Africa in order to get to the water. And, one of the animals has got great hearing, another animal may have great eyesight. The zebras will tend to go down into, the river areas where they have to go down across a river, which of course there's alligators and stuff, crocodiles stay in the rivers, and then up the other side in order to continue the migration. And everybody waits until the first one or two zebras goes through, and once they cross to the other side, then this massive migration of all the animals go across because they're all using their senses to let them know when and where danger is going to be.
wouldn't it be wonderful if humans would work together like those animals?
Yeah, I totally agree. If people would just understand that we can get so much more accomplished when we work together than when we work alone, that would be fantastic.
Wow. Well, thank you for that story. Deborah, now I would like to ask you, because we start every show with your favorite quote, if you would share that with us and how you apply this to your everyday thinking.
Yes, absolutely. One of my most favorite quotes goes like this: "Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power that they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing." And that came from Muhammad Ali, of course, an American heavyweight boxer.
Wow, that is a very impressive quote. And so, how do you apply that in your journey?
Well, one of the things that I've learned the hard way, and and then learned and applied in my life, and then teach my clients as well, is really I love the part where it's impossible as a dare. Because to me,
Oh,
when you can have the courage in the face of fear and then grow your confidence so that you can go out and do things that you've never done before, it's called growth. It's called being alive rather than staying, like a blank book, Averages and Addiction, staying in that average safe space.
sure. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing how you do apply that. And speaking of your book, Average is an Addiction, I did read it and it's a great book. I really recommend it. In the part where you discuss the 6 A's of acute awareness, specifically number 4, assess, you say it is important to assess what happened due to your actions. So, would you please share one of the times when you didn't get the results that you set out to achieve, you failed, and how you assessed what happens and what you did differently the next time? Will you tell us that story?
Yes, I'm happy to. One of the things that happened, and of course there's been many times, but that I failed and grew from it. Of But one of the times I really remember is when I was first starting out in the construction industry, and I was a construction accountant. Now, I became a construction accountant when I had absolutely no accounting background and knew nothing about accounting, uh, and went from receptionist to that position. So, I went in as really green, really a newbie. One of the things that was part of the responsibility for my position was that every single month I had to prepare what's called a draw, D-R-A-W, which is basically an invoice that we would send off to the owner of a construction project, and we would get very detailed in what's called line items, very detailed in every single subcontractor that had been on the construction site. And we would put on every line how much money we needed to draw in order to pay that subcontractor, as well as we had a line as what we were going to pay ourselves
Sure.
during that particular month of the project. And I created the draw or this invoice and had, meticulously gone through and put all the information in there, had it signed by the project manager, and then sent it off to the owner. And usually it'll take 60 or 30 to 45 days before the money comes in. And during that time, I looked at it as it was getting close to time for the money to come in and prepare checks to pay the subcontractors, and realized I had missed one of the subcontractors.
Oh, no.
And we're talking several hundreds of thousands of dollars that I was supposed to draw for that particular subcontractor and didn't. And when I realized it, it was like, oh my God, my stomach was churning. I was so nervous. I was disappointed in myself. And I knew that I had to go tell my boss.
Wow.
And he was a partner in the company as well as a construction manager. And the good part about it was he certainly wasn't happy. And he was very stern, but nice in letting me know that he wasn't happy and this cannot happen. Fortunately, the company that I worked for had enough funds that we still paid the subcontractor, but it came out of our funds until the following month when I could do the job.
Oh.
But that just struck me of what the effect could have been had we not had the funds to pay the subcontractor. It would have been devastating.
Oh, that had to be so terrifying to go and tell him.
Oh, it absolutely was. So one of the things I did is you mentioned the 6 days of acute awareness. And I'll go through it really quickly, and then I'll come to assess and really get into that, is that I became aware. I became aware specifically and exactly of what I wanted. And what I wanted right then is to never make that mistake.
Oh.
And I asked myself, well, what was I thinking? How can I get successful results in the future? How do I need to behave? How do I need to think? What do I need to do differently? And then I started to access, which is the third step, which is act. The A is for access. I accessed my imagination and started to realize again, what can I tell myself? How can I think? How can I feel? What can I do differently? Choose the emotion that I would need to have the next time I did that application, because if I started to do the application in fear and anxiety and stress, the chances of me making another mistake would have been huge. Because the mind under stress cannot think straight. So then we get to step 4, which is assess. And this is a part, it's very important, and it's a part that a lot of people miss. And it's taking the time to really assess what went right and what I could do differently. So it's not chastising myself, it wasn't judging myself, it wasn't ripping myself apart and actually bullying myself, because there would have been no benefit to that, which is again what I teach my clients. But to really look and consider what went right, because again, 98% of it was right.
Right.
Look at all the line items and all the detailed information, but that one thing was wrong. The fifth, so that was the really assessing of part of it, and part of assessing is looking how I'm going to behave differently. Out of that event, I started creating cheat sheets.
Oh.
So, CHEAT, cheat sheets.
Right.
And I write about it in the book that I created these cheat sheets for pretty much everything I did that was going to be a repeated process.
Aha.
Down the actual steps of what I needed to do, how I needed to check it, how I would verify and ask questions in the future to make sure it never happened again. So that was really the assessment. And then step 5 was adjust. So I made those adjustments, created this cheat sheet. Step 6 is appreciate, which really most people miss. And that appreciation is huge in changing behavior. When we can appreciate, and in this instant, I could appreciate the fact that, oh my gosh, yes, things went wrong, but I'm smart, I'm capable, I can make this happen. And I changed my behavior, I changed my actions by building this cheat sheet and using it in the future. And because of that, the next time the draw came up on that project or any one of them, I felt courage and I felt confidence in order to go ahead and get it done right.
Wow. Thank you for going into detail with all of the steps because that just adds so much to how we can really empower ourselves by just following those steps I mean, it might take a lot of time to get all those little cheat sheets done, but what a benefit to have that.
Well, in other instances, it may not be a cheat sheet. It just happened to be in this particular case. So that 6 A's of acute awareness can be applied to any situation just to see how and what am I going to do differently in the future, and then making sure that you can take those actions with the courage and confidence to continue to grow and get better at what you do and lay the foundation that instead of chastising ourselves, we actually come up with an action plan. In this instance, it was cheat sheets. In another instance, it could be, something very different.
Right. The powerful thing that you said was not bullying ourselves.
Oh, that's huge.
And we do that.
Oh, I've gotten on the phone with one of my clients after working with them for quite a while, so I knew their personality and I knew I could do this with them. And I got on the phone, we talked for just a moment, and then I said, "You're so stupid. I can't believe that you would actually do that. What in the world is wrong with you?" And I just went on for, about, 60 seconds.
Right.
And then I stopped and hesitated for a moment, and I asked him, I said, "How'd that make you feel?"
Oh.
And I could hear him come back with, "I really didn't like that. I don't know what to think. I'm confused. I'm upset. I'm frustrated. I'm whatever." And I said, "Yeah, you know what?" I said, "Those are the words that I've taken notes on over the we talk that you use to describe yourself pretty much every time we talk."
Oh my goodness.
And with that, there was a huge realization on his part and we talked a bit about the bullying that we all would say if somebody came up and bullied somebody we loved, "Stop that, don't do that, what in the world do you think you're doing, leave them alone, the good kid," whatever the case may be. And yet we do it to ourselves all the time.
Oh, it's incredible. And I don't think we realize that.
But we don't until we become aware, which obviously goes back to the 6 A's of acute awareness, is the becoming aware and really naming what's going on is huge amount of power. Rather than running from it, we name it, we get the elephant up on the table, and then we can take action to change it. The tools and techniques that I teach people is how to recognize when things aren't right, when you're out of alignment, when the consequences and the results you're getting are not in your favor. Then we trace that back to the thoughts and the feelings and the beliefs that you have. And when we can change those, then the behaviors, the averages in addiction, the behaviors change, you get better results.
Well, just having the awareness of those 6 A's of acute awareness should be enough to get everybody listening to go and buy your book because it is so good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It happened to be chapter 11.
Right, it was wonderful. And thank you for sharing that story because when you relive those painful moments, it helps all of us to move forward when we acknowledge those and see the positive outcome we have.
Right. And I would do a little bit of an upgrade to that statement is we don't have to relive them. We just have to be aware of them because we
Oh,
can implant that emotional feeling and the repetitive behavior even deeper. So it's observing them and being aware of them and then being able to, just as you said, make changes and take different action, change our behaviors.
okay. Well, thank you for that. Well, what I want to do now, Deborah, is to go to the other end of the spectrum and let's talk about the time in your journey when you had an aha moment, when you became aware of the new path that you wanted to travel. So you take us there to when you had that light bulb go off and through the steps that you took to turn that idea into success.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And this really goes back to after we had moved to Arizona, my family and I moved to Arizona. And I was, again, we talked earlier about my goal of getting out of the house, not talking baby talk, and get a job that really could pay for the additional, if I was to use beat up car, but a car that I could get back and forth to work. And after being in that position for 6 months, I was so bored out of my mind. And it wasn't that I necessarily wanted something more, something greater, something where I could grow myself. It's that I absolutely needed it. I mean, there was a hole in me that just needed to be filled with growth. And I wanted the position. Their position became available for the construction accounting position, and I wanted it. And as I mentioned earlier, I didn't have an accounting background. I didn't know much about construction, but I wanted it. And it came to the weekend right before they cut off resumes for that particular position. And I was sitting on my apartment floor and trying to come up with any particular reason why the head of construction would hire me. And I sat there and I would, with a tablet in my lap, and I would try to write something down about why me. And every time I'd write something down, it was just, that's ridiculous. And I would crumple up the paper, throw it across the floor, and then try again. And I got to the point that, I mean, tears were running down my face, and I was just so distraught and disappointed that here was an opportunity that might slip through my fingers. And I ended up getting up and I went into the kitchen, started jumping up and down a little bit, get some energy moving, splashed some water on my face, and all of a sudden the thought came, why not me?
Oh.
And when that thought came of why not me, I mean, my entire body shifted, my mind shifted, and I sat down on the floor and I started thinking about all the reasons why they should hire me. Why was it important for them to hire me? Why was it important to them? And what I realized, and this is something I actually write about in chapter 12 of the Tame and Train the Beast method, and this is for the S or self-identity, is I really came to the realization that when, and this is one of my quotes, is when you matter to you, what others think of you won't matter. So when you matter to you, what others think of you won't matter, because what often holds us back is what we think that others are going to think about us. And I came up with my self-identity statement. This isn't coming from a DISC test or a Kolbe or a Strengths Finder. They're all great. But I came up with my own self-identity, which is what I teach my clients, which is raw, real language that really that describes us at the very core of who we are. And my self-identity statement at that time was, I'm gutsy, I'm tenacious, I'm intelligent, I'm ambitious, I'm curious, street smart, extremely well organized, courageous, determined, dedicated, and eager to learn. I put what I learned into action. I ask a lot of smart questions and I expect answers, and I will do what it takes to be successful. Now, when I wrote that statement, like I said, my entire body shifted, my thoughts shifted, and I ended up filling out the application from a position of my new self-identity. And I walked in the next morning, and as I was a receptionist, I used to get all the applications and the resumes across my desk. And I would like to say that I walked into the construction office and laid my resume on the desk of the construction manager, but I was a little afraid to do that. So I stuck it among all the others.
Oh, no.
Put it in his desk. But the end result of that was I ended up getting hired for a position that I had no reason for them to hire me, except I came to the interview as well as the things that I wrote in my resume with my self-identity intact. Scared, still shaking in my boots when I went to the interview, but I knew that I could do it. I would figure out a way to do it, and they needed to hire me because I would do the best job that anybody would do.
Oh, now that is a powerful example. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Goodness.
Yeah, I continue to really come up with thoughts and ideas that I teach others too of how do you outsmart the obvious? How do you look at, because I knew that I could take the traditional path would have been go back to college, get the education, get whatever, so I could have the great resume. I didn't have the time and I didn't have the funds to do that, so I need to outsmart the obvious.
Oh, and you did it too. You got the job.
One of the things that I learned from that, my aha moment, was really just that I needed to do something different than everybody else was doing in order to get ahead. And it wasn't more knowledge, more education, more talent. Certainly other people had more of that than I did. But what I ended up doing is this is whenever I started clear back, 1980-ish, so a long time ago, and started studying quantum physics, neuroscience, brain research. I'm a stress reduction specialist. I studied body language, conscious language, NLP, hypnosis, and I really applied all of that to myself so that I could really take the steps and grow my career just by being, excuse the expression, but bold and ballsy.
Right.
Other people were hiding in the background and taking that average position, being safe and secure in where they were, rather than being bold and taking the steps to improve themselves.
That's an excellent example of the steps that you took.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, and those real life experiences and how you applied them to your life, it just showed how you kept growing. And look at the success that you have now, just because you took those initial steps of not doing the conventional of going back to school, but doing things that were way out there.
Absolutely. And again, I was fearful at every level. Every time I moved to another position, I was always moved into a position that I didn't know how to do it and had never done it before.
Wow.
Yet I would continue to go back to my self-identity statement. And the thing that I teach my clients is, when you have the courage in the face of fear, because we cannot be courageous unless fear is there first. So they come together. So when we realize that, when fear comes out, and then we say, okay, got it, here's who I am from past experience, all the evidence I've built, I can do this. We take that next step, then confidence goes up with it. And then the question comes up is, if you can do that, what else can you do?
What else can you do? Oh, gosh. Good examples. Well, Deborah, I'm going to ask you to bring us to the present time and to share your proudest entrepreneurial moment.
Oh my, this just tugs at my heartstrings. And I was working with one of my NFL clients, and he was a big offensive tackle, which means he's one of the big guys on the line. He was like 327 pounds, 6'4", had been in the NFL for 7 years, so he was a veteran. And I'd been working with him for quite a while because everybody, when they get up to that level, you can still become average because you're average amongst your peers, even though you're at an elite level.
Okay.
So amongst his peers, he was always looking to keep his position, keep that starter position. But it happened during preseason, and he had a severe injury where he tore his tricep about 80%, which means he tore in his arm 80%. And in his position, he needed to be able to take his arms, punch out at another player equal in size to him, and move them away to keep them from getting to the quarterback. He was told he would never play again.
Wow.
And I worked with him, and my work is completely over the phone with my clients, which gives them flexibility of time in their erratic schedules. And I worked with him during his rehab, doing a lot of the energy work, doing a lot of the mental, emotional, physiological work that we could do with him. And what happened is he ended up, in his own words, we cut about 2 months off of his rehab, and he was back in the league playing again.
Really?
And I mean, my heart was just soaring at the fact that, because, for him not to play after 7 years in the league and the dreams that he had for himself, for him not to be able to complete that dream would have completely devastated him.
Oh, yes. Wow. Well, that's such a very good example for sharing that. And is it because our mind has so much power that we don't realize, and we
It
need to?
absolutely is. There's a combination, and thank you for asking the question. What people often don't realize, and they don't realize because they've never been taught. It's not because they're stupid, it's because they've never been taught these things, which is why I'm here, is that, our mental aspect, our thoughts, create chemicals that create emotions. And those emotions start to affect our body, where it weakens our body, it confuses our thoughts, takes away our strength. With players, they lose flexibility. Bodies, if it's an executive or an entrepreneur, they can't think straight. They certainly can't negotiate well. Trying to just get through their day is a task of procrastination and hesitation. So when we look at our thoughts and the chemicals that they create to create the emotions that create feelings within our body, including they affect our autonomic nervous system, which affects our health because our autonomic nervous system affects almost 90% of the organs and systems in our body. It also affects our behaviors because we're thinking certain ways and we have feelings. If we're thinking that I hate this isn't going to work, I don't know what I'm going to do, and it creates the feelings of frustration and worry and concern, then our behaviors are going to be from that state. Now, the good news is when we can use the techniques that I teach and change our thoughts and change our emotions in nanoseconds to being, which is, going back to the awareness first. We have to be aware that we're having those negative thoughts and feelings and what our behaviors are like, which create the consequences. Then we can change more quickly into a positive thought. So now the same thing happens, which is the good news, that when we're thinking, oh my, I am smart, I am, the whole self-identity statement, I'm gutsy, I'm tenacious, I'm intelligent, I'm ambitious, and everything I read before, when I change my thoughts to be that, I'm also changing how I feel.
Wow.
And when I change how I feel, then my reactions, my behaviors are from that state. Now, what that does to our body and what happened with this particular player is under stress, the body cannot heal nearly as well. So when we took the stress out or lowered and managed his stress, the body could heal faster. When we affected his thoughts about rehab, about being able to play again, and we affected his feelings, which really ingrained it into him that it became a new belief rather than the belief I'm never going to play again and this is a career-ending injury. We changed the belief. Now the body could heal. What he was able to do in rehab, he could do more quickly with the weights. And again, this was through, a release from the doctor, and he was working with a trainer.
Right.
He could elevate and accelerate his rehab to the point he came out of it and he says, I've never felt so strong, and his conditioning and the strength of his body was so much more than he had had for several years coming up to that point.
Oh, that's an incredible story. Again, I know I don't know what the stress does to my body, and I don't want to keep doing that.
And I have diagrams of that both for my sports clients, but also for my business professionals that actually show how it affects. I mean, you talk about somebody who's overweight or underweight, it's emotional.
Really?
We eat a lot of times, sometimes it's for comfort, to get rid of stress. We can depend on food to be a certain way and to give us a certain feeling. So it's a momentary change, just like, something like smoking or drugs or, any type of addictive behavior that has a negative effect. It's a way of numbing out and dumbing ourselves down.
Yes.
Which means, again, the chances of achieving more and growing in our career and in our business becomes less and less to the point that we become average and we're stuck in that addictive behavior with not knowing how to get out.
Wow. Well, Deborah, people really want to hear stories like yours and how you're making your business a success because you're helping other people. And that's what makes you so successful, is that it isn't just all centered on you. The people that you have helped in your business is just outstanding, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, what's the best business advice that you've ever received?
This is actually kind of funny. When I first started working with athletes, and this was many years ago, I was meeting with some of the retired athletes, just, researching, gathering information. And I remember sitting in one of our local restaurants here in the Scottsdale area with a former NFL player. And I asked him that question too, what's the best advice? What can I do? And what he said, and I just love the statement, he said, get your face in the place.
What?
So get your face in the place. And I started laughing. I was like, okay, so tell me more. And he said, you've got to get out there. You've got to be seen repeatedly by the people that you want to work with.
Wow.
So start to know and understand. They start to know and understand that you care. You get in with people and you talk to them. You have conversations with them. You're not pushing your business down their throat. You're letting them know more about you, and you're gaining more knowledge about who they are and what they do and what is important to them. And that's been so valuable to repeatedly go to same networking groups that I feel are absolutely important, and they're the type of people that I want to hang with
Right.
and help me grow, and they're also the type of people that can be my ideal clients. And to go into those places, getting my face in the place repeatedly in a way where they get to know and trust me.
That's something really good to remember and easy to remember. Get your face in the place.
Yeah,
I like that.
nice. Love it.
Well, what is the vision of the future of your business?
Well, what I'm really looking to do is a combination of things. One, get out there speaking. I love speaking to groups of people and sharing this information so they can really, start to take that leap in their life, in their career, in their business, in their life, and get energized to get out of that average ho-hum everyday, life that they may be living in certain areas, and really start to move closer to their dream. The other thing is doing workshops. So workshops is working with a group of people, whether it's 4 or 5 people or large groups, and really going deep into the methodology and the tools and the technology where they can learn to focus fast, where they learn exactly what they can do. Everything based on the neurosciences and everything that I mentioned earlier is how can they manage their stress in critical situations and accelerate their growth. And then the third thing and last thing would be one-on-one, is working, coaching, consulting, and training privately. And all my work is done over the phone with my clients who are, within, the U.S. and Canada. And if they're overseas, I work in Skype.
Oh, okay.
And also VIP days where we can just come and in a day just knock out, a specific problem or issue that they're dealing with that's keeping them from getting what they really want and achieving the goals that they are really set on achieving.
That's very powerful, and I know that you particularly are interested in speaking engagements, and I hope that anybody that's listening keeps that in mind so that they can give you a referral for that.
Yeah, thank you. My talks are usually entitled Up Yours, which gets people attention. It's up yours, up power, up your performance, and it will up your profits, whatever profits are to you. That could be your paycheck, that could be that next level you're looking to go to, or if you have a business that you're running, it could certainly be your bottom line.
Right. Okay, thank you. Well, now can you share one of your personal habits that you strongly believe contributes to your success?
Absolutely. And we really touched on this earlier. It's having the courage to take action in the face of fear. I mean, every day there's something that I face, as do others, that we look at it and we start to recognize that we're hesitating and procrastinating and putting off, not doing what we need to do. And the minute I can recognize that could be a phone call that I need to make, a sales type call. I don't love making sales type calls or, talking to people about potentially working with me. Love talking to them, just don't like the sales aspect of it. And yet I know it's a necessity.
Sure.
So it could be something like that, or a phone call you've been putting off, or someone you need to meet, or, whatever it is. A lot of people are afraid of networking groups, and, I'm not good in networking groups is what I hear a lot from clients. So it's when you can have that courage or notice the fear, have the courage, and then take the step. And then the one thing that people don't realize is once you've taken the step, it's, and I practice this in my own day-to-day business, is recognizing and noticing the evidence that you did take that step. So it's building the evidence, building the foundation that you did do it, and then praising yourself, no matter what the outcome was, praising yourself for the fact that you actually took that step. So it embeds it in you and you can do it again and again.
Great examples. Well, do you have an internet resource to share with your listeners that helps your efficiency?
One of the places they could go if they're looking to kind of look at some of the work I do and look at some of the examples and actually apply some of the techniques that I teach is they could go to yourclearedge.com. So that's your, Y-O-U-R, clear, C-L-E-A-R, edge, E-D-G-E.com. And on there's a button in the navigation area that says radio. And it goes back to I did 3.5 years working with Tommy Lassiter, who was a former NFL player, doing his sports talk radio. And I had my Down and Dirty with Deborah segment. So going into that area, what you're going to hear is, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes of extracted my segment, which I'm actually teaching during that segment, There's also some PDFs out there that listeners can go and actually listen to those, pull it down, and do some of the work that I've been talking about for themselves and have that resources available.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That'll be very beneficial to the listeners. And storyteller listeners, you will find the links to these sites in the show notes of today's episode at bizstoryshare.com. Deborah Dubree. Goodness, thank you for that link. Well, Deborah, for us who are describe for us who are perfect referrals for your business, those who would be business associates or clients, the listeners know, who would benefit from doing business with you or a referral for a speaking engagement for you.
Thank you. Yes, the clients that I love working with are entrepreneurs, key business professionals, certainly sports. I work with college and pro. And the common thread with all of them is they're smart, they're knowledgeable, they're very talented. They're usually doing fairly well in their career, but they want more. They want to accelerate their career in some way. Their positions are usually one where there's a lot of high stress, there's high expectations, and the better they perform, the more money that they're going to make. And there's
Right.
room for error. So whether that's a salesperson, someone moving up the ladder, or needs that high performance aspect and hasn't been able to figure it out on their own, and again, I've got 30 some years worth of studies, they would be the people that I can most help and enjoy with.
All right, good examples. Thank you. Well, now, if you could recommend just one book to our listeners, what would it be? And it's okay to recommend your books.
Well, okay, so Average is an Addiction from Mediocre to Millions. You can find it out on Amazon and Kindle as well as in a book. The other book that I had was How to Lead Leverage Any Pack. There's also a great book. It's called Chaos to Coherence, and it's a book written by Doc Childry and Bruce Pryor, and it's a really powerful book about making changes. So, there's 3 different options for people to, pick the book that they enjoy the most.
All right, thank you for those. And I truly enjoyed listening to your journey, and you just taught so much. You just really did give very strong examples of what you can do for people. And so would you please share one more time how we can get in touch with you and any other resources that you want us to have, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yes, thank you. Again, you can go to yourclearedge.com. You can reach me by emailing Deborah, Deborah, at yourclearedge.com. I also have a second website, which is DeborahDubree.com, which you can see different videos in that of me speaking, as well as, how I coach. And the final way would be to really actually just pick up the phone and call me. Let's have a conversation. And you can call me at 480-585-0420. So that's 480-585-0420. Let's have a conversation just to see if and how I can be a benefit to you, and we'll go from there.
Well, Deborah, thank you for being so generous with your time and expertise and your experiences. Listeners, remember you can find links to this resource and everything we've been chatting about in today's episode by going to bizstoryshare.com/DeborahDubree. Again, thank you, Deborah, and we'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Give the storyteller some love. Go to bizstoryshare.com, click on the iTunes button, and give a 5-star review. Thanks.